Tommy, just a regular guy in my 30s. Have a decent job in IT, a mortgage, the whole 9 yards. Married to my wife, Regina. We've been together for a good few years, and for the most part, it's been okay. Keyword, been. Lately, things had been getting weird. Regina got really into online blogs and forums, not the fun kind with memes or hobbies, the kind that talks endlessly about social justice, the patriarchy, and her new favorite term, toxic masculinity. Suddenly, everything I did was a symptom of some deep-seated societal problem. I'd open a tight jar for her. You're reinforcing the stereotype that women are weak. I'd offer to carry the heavy groceries. You're implying I'm incapable. I'd fix her car when the battery died. You're using your mechanical knowledge to create a power imbalance. It was exhausting. I'm not a confrontational guy. I just want a peaceful life. So I'd just nod and say, "Okay, honey," and then go about my day. But the workload around the house was starting to become a joke. Our division of labor was basically me doing all the actual labor. Picture a typical Saturday a few months back. I wake up early, sun's barely up, lawn's looking like a jungle. I haul out the old gas mower from the shed. Thing weighs a ton. Spend a solid hour and a half sweating buckets, getting the yard looking respectable. My back is aching. I'm covered in grass clippings. Walk inside to get some water. Regina is at the kitchen table on her laptop, sipping a perfectly crafted latte. She looks up, doesn't even say "good job" or "thank you," just says, "Can you be a bit quieter? I'm trying to concentrate on my article about the invisible emotional labor women are forced to perform." I just nod, drink my water, go back outside. The gutters are full of leaves from a storm we had. So I get the ladder, climb up 2 stories, and spend another hour scooping out disgusting wet leaf mush. Nearly slip and break my neck twice. After that, I notice the garbage and recycling bins are overflowing, so I bag everything up, haul the massive heavy bins down our long, sloped driveway to the curb. One of the wheels on the trash bin is busted, so I'm basically dragging 80 pounds of garbage. Finally, I'm done with the outside work. I go inside, hoping to maybe sit down for 5 minutes. Regina is still on her laptop. She tells me the downstairs toilet is making a weird gurgling sound. So I spend the next 45 minutes with my head in a toilet tank, figuring out the float valve is busted, drive to the hardware store, get the part, come back, and fix it. My hands are scraped up. I smell like gutter sludge and toilet water. I walk into the living room. She's closed her laptop. She looks at me and says, the line that I was starting to dread. "What are you making for dinner? I'm starving, and I'm just too drained to cook tonight." I ask her what she did all day. She says she wrote 1,000 words for her blog and deplatformed a misogynist in a Facebook group. She calls this doing the work. I was the one who did about 6 hours of actual physical work. But I'm the one who ends up making spaghetti for dinner while she watches TV. This was my life, every weekend. I wasn't her husband. I was her live-in handyman, landscaper, and chef. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a weeknight, maybe a month after that particular Saturday. She calls me into the living room for a house meeting. I already know this is going to be bad. House meeting is corporate speak for "I'm about to lecture you." She has a clipboard and a very serious expression. She tells me she's been doing a lot of thinking and reading. Our marriage, she explains, is fundamentally unbalanced because it operates on outdated patriarchal gender roles. I almost laugh. I do literally everything. How much more unbalanced can it get? She says she's no longer willing to participate in a system that oppresses her. So, from this day forward, our household will be a gender role-free zone. She then shows me the clipboard. She's made a chart, a literal laminated chart. On it are all the daily domestic tasks: cooking, doing the dishes, laundry, vacuuming, dusting, cleaning the bathroom. She proudly explains that we will now be splitting these tasks exactly 50-50. We will alternate days. Perfect equitable partnership, she says, beaming like she's just solved world hunger. I look at the chart. Then I look at her. I ask, "This is a great start, but the list seems a little incomplete." Her smile falters. "What do you mean?" "Well," I say, "I don't see taking out the trash on here, or mowing the lawn, or fixing things when they break, or any kind of yard work, or moving heavy furniture, or dealing with spiders, or climbing on the roof to clean the gutters. I point out that all the tasks on her list are the soft indoor chores. She scoffs, literally rolls her eyes at me. She says those things aren't daily, systemic labor. They're just occasional situational tasks. She tells me I'm trying to derail the conversation because I'm resistant to change and afraid of true equality. My brain is screaming. I want to list off the 100+ situational tasks I'd done in the last year alone. But then, an idea starts to form in my head. A beautiful, simple, perfect idea. I stop arguing. I look at her, put on my most sincere face, and say, "You're right, I'm sorry. This is a great plan. No more gender roles. I'm 100% on board. Let's do it." She looks surprised, but pleased. She thinks she's won. She thinks I've finally seen the light. She has no idea what I've just agreed to. I'm not just agreeing to her rules. I'm agreeing to follow them to the absolute letter. The first test came 2 days later. It's trash day morning. I'm making coffee. I hear the familiar rumble of the garbage truck coming down the street. Regina is still in her bathrobe, scrolling on her phone. I say, "Hey, the truck's almost here. You should probably get the bins out to the curb." She looks at me like I have 3 heads. "That's your job," she says. I take a slow sip of my coffee. Actually, according to the new household policy, there are no jobs for a specific gender. And since taking out the trash isn't on our 50-50 chart, it's a situational task that we need to handle equitably, right? She just stares at me. "I handled it last week," I continue, "so I guess it's your turn to handle this situation." The truck is getting closer. The brakes hiss at the neighbor's house. Her eyes go wide. She realizes I'm not joking. She throws her phone on the couch and stomps to the back door. I follow, just to watch. She yanks open the door and is met with the 3 massive bins. One for trash, one for recycling, one for yard waste. All full, all heavy. She grabs the handle of the main trash bin and tries to wheel it out. She doesn't know the one wheel is busted. The bin tips. She stumbles, and she barely manages to keep it from spilling garbage all over the patio. She's grunting, struggling to drag this thing. She's wearing fuzzy slippers that are getting covered in dirt and morning dew. It's a long way to the curb. I just stand at the door, sipping my coffee. She eventually gets all 3 bins to the street, just as the truck is pulling up. She comes back inside, hair a mess, bathrobe stained, breathing heavily. She glares at me. "I can't believe you made me do that." I just smile. Welcome to equality. The weekend arrived, and with it, the next chapter in our little experiment. The lawn was getting shaggy again. On Saturday morning, Regina mentions it. The yard looks terrible. The neighbors are going to start complaining. It's a passive-aggressive way of saying, "Go mow the lawn." "I agree," I say cheerfully. "It's definitely looking rough. The mower's in the shed." She stares at me again. The look is becoming quite familiar. "What? You can't be serious." "I don't know how to use that thing." "There are no gender roles here, remember? You said so yourself. I did it last time. It's your turn." I remind her that this is another one of those situational tasks. She huffs and puffs, but eventually marches out to the shed. I watch from the kitchen window. This is better than any TV show. She wrestles the heavy mower out. She looks at it, completely clueless. She tries to just push it, obviously not realizing you have to start the engine. After a few minutes of that, she figures out there's a cord. She yanks on the pull cord. Once, twice. She's not strong enough to give it a good solid pull. She tries again and again, getting more and more frustrated. She's probably flooding the engine, but she wouldn't know that. After 10 minutes of this, she screams in frustration and kicks the wheel of the mower. Then she stomps back inside. "That stupid thing is broken," she yells, throwing the shed key on the counter. "It worked fine for me last week," I say calmly. "Well, I can't do it. It's too hard." "I guess the lawn doesn't get mowed then," I say with a shrug, and I go back to reading my book. And it didn't. The grass grew. The weeds grew. Our yard started to look like an abandoned lot. A few days later, we're watching a movie in the living room. Suddenly, there's a loud crack, followed by a huge crash. The big floating shelf on the wall, the one holding dozens of heavy art books and philosophy textbooks, had collapsed. Books and splintered wood are everywhere. Regina jumps up. "Oh my God! Fix it, fix it!" Her first instinct, her gut reaction, is to tell me to fix it. I look at the mess. I look at her. I get up, walk over to the hall closet and get my big toolbox. I bring it over and set it down on the floor in front of her. Okay, I say. She looks at the toolbox, then at me. What are you doing? Well, this is a situational task, a broken thing. I fixed the last broken thing, the toilet. So, it's your turn to fix this one. Her jaw drops. I don't know how to fix a shelf. I don't know how to use any of that, she says, pointing at the toolbox like it's a venomous snake. There are plenty of videos online that can show you how to find a stud in the wall and use a power drill. It's a great opportunity to learn a new skill, I say, using the kind of encouraging, slightly condescending tone she always used with me. She just stood there, fuming. The broken shelf and the pile of books stayed on the floor for days. It became a new piece of abstract art in our living room. The death of expectation, I called it in my head. Our house was slowly descending into chaos. The trash would pile up until she couldn't stand the smell and would begrudgingly drag it out. The yard was a mess. There was a giant spider in the bathtub for 2 days because it was her turn to deal with it. She ended up just closing the bathroom door and using my shower. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't being mean or yelling. I was just complying. I was following her new world order, and it was driving her insane. She kept saying, "This isn't what I meant." And I'd just reply, "But this is what you said. No gender roles. We share the burden equally." The real turning point, the moment she realized she had made a catastrophic mistake, was when she decided to invite her friends over. She has this group of friends from her online blogosphere. They're all exactly like her. They get together once a month for what they call a feminist consciousness-raising circle. It's basically a whine and complaint fest. She announced one morning that her friends were coming over that Friday night. I think she was trying to force my hand. She thought I'd be so ashamed of the state of the house that I'd break down and clean everything up. She was wrong. Friday comes. I get home from work. The house is in the same state of managed decay it's been in for weeks. The jungle lawn, the pile of broken shelf on the floor, the faint smell of garbage she'd forgotten to take out. I just go to my room, change my clothes, and start playing some video games. I hear the doorbell. I hear her greet her friends. I can hear their voices from the living room. One of them says very loudly, "Oh my God, Regina, what happened to your yard? It looks wild." I hear Regina give a flustered, rambling explanation about rewilding the local ecosystem and rejecting suburban norms. I can practically hear the eye rolls. Then they come inside. There's a moment of dead silence. I'm sure they're looking at the shelf disaster. Then the same friend asks, "Good Lord, did you get robbed? Or is this like performance art?" Regina starts trying to explain her new gender role-free household philosophy. She's trying to spin it like we're these progressive pioneers, but her friends just see a messy, neglected house. They see the truth. Her experiment was a failure. I stay in my room for a while, but eventually I get hungry. I walk out to the kitchen to make a sandwich. The three of them are in the living room, sitting amidst the wreckage. They're sipping wine and trying to pretend nothing is wrong. They all go quiet when they see me. I just give them a polite little wave. "Evening, ladies." I go into the kitchen, make myself a turkey sandwich, grab a beer, and walk right past them back to my room. I don't engage. I don't explain. I'm just a guy, in my own house, getting a sandwich. The silence as I walked by was deafening. Their little party ended early. I heard them make their excuses and leave. As soon as the door closed, Regina stormed to my room. She was furious, truly, incandescently angry. "How could you embarrass me like that?" she screamed. "Embarrass you? I didn't do anything. I was in my room. You know what I mean. This house, it's a pigsty. You let my friends see this. You did this on purpose to humiliate me." I took a calm breath. I'd been waiting for this. "Regina," I said, keeping my voice perfectly level, "I didn't let them see anything. You invited them. And I didn't do this. We did. This is the result of your new system. The system you created and demanded we follow." I told her that I was simply adhering to the rules, her rules. I said, "You wanted a world with no gender roles. This is what it looks like when the person who was doing all the male roles simply stops. It's not my fault you never considered what those roles actually entailed." She looked like I had slapped her. She had no comeback. She just stood there, shaking with anger because she knew I was right. She finally just turned and slammed the door. I thought that was the peak of the crisis. I thought that after that humiliation, she'd finally give up. But I was wrong. The universe had one final catastrophic lesson in store for her, and it was coming very, very soon. The night her friends left was the beginning of the Cold War. The shouting match at my bedroom door was the last time we really spoke for about a week. We lived in the same house like two ghosts who hated each other. She'd leave passive-aggressive notes on the fridge. The kitchen counter is a shared space. Please wipe up your crumbs. This was from the woman who was fine with a mountain of broken wood and books occupying a third of our living room. I'd just throw the notes away without comment. I kept to my side of the agreement. I cleaned up after myself, did my 50% of the chores on the chart, and did absolutely nothing else. My life actually became incredibly easy. I had so much free time. No lawn to mow, no random things to fix, no heavy lifting. I read books, I played games, I reconnected with some old friends online. Her life, on the other hand, was becoming a living nightmare of her own creation. Little problems started popping up, like tiny landmines in her progressive utopia. The light bulb in the high ceiling of our entryway burned out. It's a 15-foot ceiling. You need the big extension ladder from the garage to reach it. She mentioned it one evening. The entryway is really dark. Yeah, bulb's out, I replied, not looking up from my laptop. A day went by. I can barely see when I come home at night. It's a safety hazard. Sure is, I agreed. Another day. Are you ever going to change that light bulb? She finally snapped. I looked at her. Changing a light bulb isn't on the chart. That's a situational task. I think I changed the last one that burned out, in the kitchen. So this one's on you. The big ladder is in the garage. Be careful. It's pretty heavy. She actually went into the garage. I heard a series of loud bangs and a scrape, followed by a curse. She came back inside 5 minutes later with a cobweb in her hair and a defeated look on her face. She couldn't even get the ladder off the wall hooks, let alone set it up. The entryway remained dark for the next month. She started leaving the porch light on all night so she could see. Our electricity bill went up. Then the new coffee table arrived. She had ordered it online weeks ago. It arrived in a huge flat-pack box, probably weighed 100 pounds. The delivery guy left it on the front porch. She came to me. The new table is here. Can you help me bring it in? Sorry, that's heavy lifting. Gender role. Can't do it. She had to open the box on the porch and bring the table into piece by agonizing piece. It took her almost an hour. Then she was faced with a pile of particle board, a bag of 1,000 screws and dowels, and one of those tiny Allen keys. She spent an entire Saturday trying to put it together. The instructions might as well have been in ancient Egyptian. There was a lot of sighing, a lot of frustrated groans, and at one point, I'm pretty sure I heard her crying. By the end of the day, she had managed to build something that vaguely resembled a table, but it was incredibly wobbly and leaned to one side. She put a lamp on it, and the whole thing swayed precariously. She had to take the lamp off, so it was just this crooked, useless table sitting in the middle of the room, a monument to her incompetence with a screwdriver. Every time she looked at it, her face would twitch. I never said a word. I just let her live in the world she'd built. A world of overgrown lawns, dark hallways, broken shelves, and wobbly furniture. I could see it was wearing her down. She wasn't posting on her blog as much. She wasn't talking about the patriarchy at dinner, on the nights it was her turn to cook anyway. She was just quiet and resentful. She looked tired all the time. A part of me almost felt bad for her. But then I'd remember the years of me doing everything. The complete lack of gratitude. The smug lectures about my toxic masculinity while I was fixing the plumbing she broke. And the feeling would pass. She had to see this through to the end. She had to learn. And the final exam was coming. It all started with a flush. One morning, I used the bathroom, flushed, and noticed the water didn't go down with its usual vigor. It was slow, hesitant. Classic sign of a partial clog somewhere down the line. I knew what needed to be done. You get the snake, you run it down the pipe, you clear it out. It's a dirty, unpleasant job, but it takes 20 minutes and saves you a call to a plumber. But fixing drains is definitely a situational task. And I had a feeling it wasn't my turn, so I said nothing. I just decided to use the bathroom at work for a few days. Let the situation develop, as they say. 2 days later, I heard Regina flush the toilet. Then I heard her flush it again. And again. Then I heard a frantic, No, 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 no. I knew exactly what had happened. She had made the classic mistake. The clog wasn't clearing, and her solution was to just keep flushing, forcing more and more water into a bowl that had nowhere to go. I stepped out of my room and looked down the hall. Water was seeping out from under the bathroom door. She threw the door open. Her face was pale with panic. "Tommy, help! The toilet is overflowing!" I walked over and peered inside. It was a disaster. Water was all over the tile floor. She'd used the plunger, but she'd done it all wrong, just stabbing at the water and splashing it everywhere. She had created a disgusting, watery mess. "You have to do something," she shrieked, pointing at the toilet as if it were a monster. This was the moment, the final boss battle. I looked at the mess on the floor. I looked at her tear-streaked, terrified face, and I felt nothing, just calm. I said, "First you need to turn off the water. There's a little valve on the wall behind the toilet. Turn it clockwise." She scrambled to do it, her hands shaking. The gushing water finally stopped. She stood up, looking at me with desperation in her eyes. "Okay, now what? How do you fix it?" I folded my arms. "I don't," I said. She blinked. "What? What do you mean you don't? You have to. Look at this mess." "Regina," I said, my voice calm and steady. "Fixing a major plumbing issue is a pretty clear example of a traditionally male gender role, wouldn't you agree? It's a dirty, difficult, situational task. And according to our household rules, we don't do gender roles." Her mouth opened and closed. She was sputtering. But this is an emergency. This is different." "Is it?" I asked. "Or is it just a situation that you're not equipped to handle, so you want to fall back on the old system where I handle it for you? That seems to go against the entire philosophy you've been lecturing me about for months." I could see the rage building in her eyes, replacing the panic. "So you're just going to stand there? You're going to let our house be ruined just to prove a point?" "I'm not proving a point," I corrected her gently. "I'm following the rules. Your rules. You wanted a 50-50 partnership based on a chart of indoor chores. You dismissed everything else as unimportant. Well, this is one of those unimportant things, and it seems like my turn to fix the last thing was that leaky sink, so this one falls to you." She was shaking now. "I can't fix this. I don't know how." "Then I guess you'll have to call someone who does," I said. I turned around, walked back to my room, closed the door, and put on my noise-canceling headphones. I put on some music and tried to read. I could still faintly hear her screaming, a mix of rage and panicked sobs. It wasn't a good feeling, but it was a necessary one. I had drawn a line in the sand, and I wasn't going to cross it. She was going to have to clean up her own mess, literally. About an hour later, I heard a new noise, a deep rumbling voice from the hallway. I took off my headphones and peeked out. A plumber was there, a huge guy built like a refrigerator, with a massive toolbox and a grim expression. He was looking at the bathroom with a professional air of disgust. Regina was standing next to him, looking mortified. She'd managed to mop up most of the water with every towel we owned, which were now in a disgusting, soggy pile in the hallway. I heard the plumber say, "Yeah, looks like you got a mainline clog. Someone kept flushing and forced everything back up. Gonna have to run the industrial auger down the cleanout. It's gonna be extra for an emergency weekend call-out, you know." I heard Regina let out a little squeak. How much extra?" "Well, ma'am, for a weekend, after-hours emergency call, you're looking at a base fee of $400, plus parts and labor. Probably looking at $500 all told." $500? I could have fixed it for free in 20 minutes. Regina was silent. I could almost feel the pain of that number landing on her. She just mumbled, "Okay, just do it." The plumber got to work. It was loud and unpleasant. I just stayed in my room. This was her problem to manage. After about another hour, the plumber packed up his tools. He handed her a bill on a clipboard. I heard her say in a tiny voice, Can I pay with a credit card?" He left. She stood in the hallway for a long time, just holding that piece of paper. Finally, she knocked on my door. She opened it without waiting for an answer. Her eyes were red and puffy. She held out the bill. It was for $485.50. "We can't afford this," she whispered. "I know," I said. "I need you to pay for it," she said. "From your personal savings." I looked at her, then at the bill. "No," I said. "What?" Tommy, this is for the house. It's a shared expense. You're absolutely right, I agreed. It's a shared expense, so we'll pay for it from our shared checking account, which means you'll be paying for half of it. She looked horrified. I don't have that kind of money in my account. My half of the mortgage just came out. That sounds like a personal finance problem, I said, echoing a phrase she'd used on me a dozen times. But you're a strong, independent woman. I'm sure you'll figure it out. We agreed to equality in all things, and that includes financial responsibility for the consequences of our actions, or inactions. That was it. That was the final blow. The ideological argument was one thing, the public humiliation was another. But a nearly $500 bill that she was personally on the hook for, that was real. That was tangible. She finally broke. She sank down onto the floor, put her face in her hands, and just started to sob. Not angry, screaming sobs like before, just quiet, defeated, hopeless crying. I let her cry for a few minutes. Then I went and sat on the floor across from her. I waited until she quieted down a little. Regina, I said, my voice soft now, tell me something. What did you think was going to happen? She looked up, her face a mess. What do you mean? When you came up with this no gender roles plan, what was the end game? Did you honestly think the lawn was just going to mow itself? That the trash would magically walk to the curb? That if something heavy and complicated broke, a little gnome would show up and fix it? She didn't answer. She just shook her head. I never had a problem with equality, I told her. I would have been thrilled to have you cook more often, or help with the laundry. I was always willing to meet you in the middle. But that's not what you wanted. You didn't want equality. You wanted a vacation. You wanted to keep all the benefits of having a husband who did all the hard, dirty, difficult work, while offloading the chores you didn't feel like doing onto him under the banner of progress. You saw my contributions, the things I did to keep this house from falling apart, as invisible. You called them occasional tasks and dismissed them. Well, the last month has been a lesson in what happens when those occasional tasks don't get done. I stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at our jungle of a yard. I spent years doing all of that, and I never once got a thank you. Instead, I got lectures. I was told my willingness to do the hard stuff was toxic. You benefited from so-called patriarchal norms every single day, while simultaneously using them as a weapon to criticize me. I turned back to her. This wasn't about me proving a point. This was about me finally agreeing with you. I agreed to live by your rules. And this, I said, gesturing to the whole house, the mess, the stress, the $500 plumbing bill, this is the consequence of your philosophy when it's actually put into practice. It doesn't work. She was just looking at me. For the first time, it felt like she was actually listening, actually hearing what I was saying. She finally spoke, her voice hoarse. You're right, she whispered. I was wrong. I'm sorry. It was the first real apology I'd heard from her in years. That was the end of it. The next day, she took down the laminated chart. We sat down at the kitchen table, the real one I had assembled years ago, and we talked. We made a new list. A real list. It listed everything. Mowing the lawn, fixing things, cooking, cleaning, finances, everything. We divided it up, not based on some rigid ideology, but on what made sense. I took back all the yard work, the repairs, the heavy lifting. She took full responsibility for the laundry, the daily kitchen cleaning, and managing our bills and budget. We agreed to alternate cooking, and whoever didn't cook cleaned up the dishes. It was a real partnership, a real balance. I paid the plumber's bill, all of it. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about mutual respect, and she had finally shown me some. It took us the entire next weekend to get the house back in order. I mowed the lawn and fixed the shelf. She spent hours cleaning and helping me organize. We worked together, as a team. Things are different now. Better. She doesn't lecture me anymore. She says thank you when I fix something or bring in the groceries. She still reads her blogs, but she keeps the ideology to herself. I think she learned that ideas are easy, but reality is heavy. Sometimes it weighs 80 pounds and needs to be dragged to the curb on a busted wheel. And sometimes it's a $500 bill for a problem you created because you refused to admit you needed help. She wanted to abolish gender roles, but in the end, she just learned to appreciate mine.